Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. I'm June Robbins Foreman, your host of Conversation Cafe. Today, I'm honored to have the guest, Dennis Oenema. Did I say it right, Dennis?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
June.
I've known Dennis for a couple of years. I met him at Metro Community, and he started something called the Sandbox, and we'll get into that in a little while. But the Sandbox is basically an alternative, somewhat of an alternative to church. And I'll let him explain the reasons why that interests him. But I want to start, Dennis, with your background. I know that you were in the Army. I know that you were a nurse, and that through those experiences, you learned both to live in community and also to create community. And that's something that is much on your heart. And I would say you're an expert in it. And so, why don't you just let the audience know a little bit about your past in those settings?
You said an expert, hey, June.
Yeah.
Well, I have some experience in that area, and I've learned a lot of things about people through my lifetime because I'm a little older than June is, because June is only 45, so that helps. So a thread line in my life has been basically being living in community, creating community, or finding alternative ways of connecting people. And yes, I did spend time in the army. I actually went into the army when I turned 18, so it was quite early in my life. Spent about 4.5 years in there. After I came out of the army, I went into nursing. I did my training in nursing, and then after that, I stayed in nursing for quite a while. In both situations, I learned a lot about teamwork. I learned about the good, the bad, and the ugly when you work in a team because it's not easy, but also you create community. And of course, this was the 60s and 70s, which date me somewhat. And in those days, people were all living together and trying to create community. Sometimes just the way it came about, nothing really planned. So
Kind of a grassroots thing.
yeah, it was more grassroots.
Okay.
And
Dennis,
basically,
sorry,
yes,
before you carry on, can you focus a little bit on why you think it's important to have this discussion? Because
I,
community is integral to your life.
yes,
You created the Sandbox
yes,
for Metro Community.
yes.
Just talk a little bit, maybe define what community is, and then talk about why it's important to have this conversation now.
Well, a lot of times we talk about community, and the word is used quite loosely, but I don't think that necessarily is community because there's a lot of lonely people out there. uh, Lonely people within a church situation and setting, but also within the world, right?
Right.
And it's actually quite amazing that when you connect with people on a just a normal basis without an agenda, because that's very important, then you start to connect with them and that they feel connected to you. And you listening is the most important thing, I think, if you ever want to create community to other people. And hopefully out of that a relationship will be built. And through my life, I've built some strange relationships with people I would normally not have connected with. But by connecting with them, we started to get to know each other a little bit, start to like each other a little bit, get a better understanding where we both were coming from. And then you have some really good relations coming out of it. Now, they're not with you for the rest of your lives at times. Sometimes people stay with you for quite a long time, and sometimes that's just for a time and they move on. But both parties have learned something in creating community and looking out for one another, and not to be pretentious that I would know a lot more than they know, because I learn a lot from people.
Okay,
And
you mentioned relationship, and that's the basis of community. What
yes,
what is the making for a good relationship, and how do people develop a relationship? You mentioned listening as one.
yes, listening, and also don't assume that the person has the same opinions than you have, because they might have a different opinion. So are you open to listen to that opinion? Are you open to accept that opinion, although you might not agree with it? But that's not the issue. The issue is that you learn to understand basically humanity. I think in regards to that, Jesus was a good example of the fact that he was able to relate to humanity. He understood where humanity was, and he understood where people came from and uh, where they were going and what their problems were and what their needs were. And I think that's a good thing to be involved in. Yeah, some people have a greater tendency to be a bit more sensitive to that. Like I learned some of that within the nursing career I had for quite a long time. I also learned a lot about creating community. Actually, in Kelowna, at one time we had a, a community called the community team, which is now a cheap thing to say. You need to give it a more spicier uh, title. But we were really close for about 6, 7, 8 years. We actually did stuff together. We got together. We actually went out and met with other people in other places within Canada to talk about what it is to create community.
Who is we? Who, what are you talking about?
Well,
What was this?
so we were at that time a part of a not to be named other church in Kelowna, and my friend Dave Pauls and his wife Jerry and Alita and I and others, we got together and we say we need to build what we call, and I don't really like the word, an intentional community. That means we are going to deal with the good, the bad, and the ugly, and try to understand one another. At that time, we were, from a Christian point of view, doing also a lot of listening prayer with one another. But we started to feel that we actually had something going, and that we could share that with other people. Not that we had the prime example of community, because we didn't. We had our flaws too. But
Mhm.
we actually went out and talked about it, and then basically said to people, there is hope, there are possibilities, but it cannot maybe be done the same way as we are used on. And I think within certain faith circles, there is this entrenched feeling that the way we have done it is the best way we can do things. But I believe that we need to look creatively, because we're not just there for ourselves, we're also there for other people who might like to join our community but have a totally different opinion.
Okay, stop there. You're saying we might think that the way we always did it is the only way to do it. Just for the sake of the audience, what is that way that you're referring to, that we've always done it that way? And we need to kind of think outside of the box and do something differently to meet people's needs.
Yeah, so sometimes what you hear, and this is not my quote, but basically, if people join a particular faith community, they often want community, but they got judgment. They wanted to affect the life of the church and got bureaucracy. They wanted to have a conversation and they got doctrine. And then they wanted a meaningful engagement with the world, because that's the goal of the church anyway, and they get a moral prescription. So they don't feel that they're really connected in it, especially if they have a different opinion or look at stuff differently than we most of the time do, because we live in silos. Most of the time, the people within certain circles, they all think the same and they all like to have the same opinions. We're not necessarily, and I include myself, not necessarily open to hearing a different way of community being expressed. What does
Okay.
that mean?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Now, what does that mean? So I think what you're saying, and you said it earlier, is when we approach somebody else, we're going to set our agenda aside.
Yes, you
And we're
have
going
to.
to look at that individual and just be really curious and
Yes,
open. And instead of trying to mold the conversation or the relationship into some finished, some kind of conclusion that we're trying to get to, we just leave it open and we just get to know people. And by doing, in order to do that, we need to be curious and ask questions.
yes,
That's what you're saying. And
and
and often in the church, we do have that agenda. We want to get to the place where we bring
yes,
people into the church, or we want
yeah,
them to
yeah,
be able to read the Bible or to know how to pray. And
yeah,
that's what, and instead of basically meeting people where we're at, we want to jump them into this end position. I think that's what you're saying.
yes. I think that is correct, June. I think we have this, although we might not say it, but we have this this idea that the only reason why we have to have relationship with other people is that they can fulfill our purpose. And sometimes you look at people as projects and objects
Right.
and numbers. But they're really that's not the whole reason why humanity is around us. The reason why humanity is around us is so we can probably create a relationship with them. Now, if they eventually come to a point where they want to know a little bit more about us, because often you meet people sometimes they will tell you all about themselves, but they don't listen and they don't ask. So if you and I have a conversation and I disagree with you, instead of saying I disagree with you, then ask a question, which is a question. So why do you think this way? Why do you feel that way? Why have you come to that conclusion? Because that way you help the other person to express that. And sometimes if they can also come to the realization that they might be wrong, and then you can have a more in-depth conversation about why things the way they are. And since we live in such a divisive world at this
Right.
present time, I think it's better for one party, and I hope that I can be that person. I'm not always that person, that I can shut up and listen to what the other actually has to say and to get a better understanding about why they are the way they are.
What helps to create that mindset of it's almost like a relaxation
Yes.
of not having to convince somebody, not having to um, manipulate the conversation. What creates that sense of peace almost? What do you
I
think
think
contributes to that?
I think you need to discipline yourself because I'm not really that kind of a person. I'd rather jump up and say, well, this is what I think. This is how I think you're wrong and everything else. And that's the way I was in the early days when I was very opinionated and very strong in my opinions in regards to certain subjects in life. But I've learned that over time, it doesn't get you anywhere. And I also stay away from labeling people. Don't give them a label because if you give them a label, it's extremely difficult for them to shred that label and to become a different person too, right?
Yeah, I want to expand a little bit on what you said because I think it's helpful for me when I'm thinking through the questions that I'm asking. I didn't even think about discipline. When I asked that question, I was wondering how can I be more receptive to another person? And I think discipline is a great answer and something that I wouldn't have thought of. So
Hmm.
in order to exercise discipline, you would have to believe that that is important for you, important enough that you would hold back and actually allow another person's ideas and worldview to emerge. So that
Yeah.
discipline and that respect of the other person. It's just how I'm a bit of a, I don't know, a formula, but it certainly helps when I'm trying to get to that place
Yes.
to know what do I need to do? What do
Yes.
I need to encompass in my life? So
Yes.
discipline is, yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah. And I'm not a good listener, but over time I've learned a little bit more how to listen and not to come up with right away conclusions in my mind about
Right,
why this person is saying something, but rather to ask inquisitive questions so that the other person feels valued in
right.
regards to that. And I mean, I have a strong opinion about this within, let's say, most evangelical circles, is that there is not always that willingness to really come to understand the other individual because sometimes we create the impression that we know what is right and what is wrong, and I don't think that's the case. At times we might be right or wrong, but most of the time the other people have something really interesting and more to say, you know?
Well, yeah, and I don't think it's for myself, I don't think it's an issue to think that I'm right.
No,
If I didn't think I was right, I don't think I would proceed in a certain direction. So I don't think that is it's a bad thing. I think what you're saying is set your rightness aside just for a minute to find out what might be true or valuable in what the other person is saying. Not to mention the fact that the individual themselves is valuable. But also
yes,
what you said was over time I've learned it doesn't work.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I think it's important too for experience that we look back at our experiences and evaluate them. What
Yeah.
happened when I did that?
Correct.
So I
And
think that's a really wonderful thing about age is that we can look back
yes.
and
Yeah.
see how I I want to shy away from the whole idea of judgment, but
Yes.
we came to a conclusion
Yes.
and then we decided it was absolutely the absolute truth and then over and we didn't maybe allow
Yes.
ourselves some space
Yes.
to to consider that there might be other angles or other
Yes.
elements of that particular conclusion. Yeah. So
And maybe our understanding within, let's say, Christian circles about community is a watered down version of what it can actually be. So there is a lot more to it. Sometimes we talk in churches about we are a community and we're a family. Are we really a community? Are we really a family? Or are we just saying that because it makes us feel good that we're actually doing something?
how do
And
we know?
I'm
How
not
do we know,
dishing.
Dennis?
Eh?
How do we know then?
Well, I don't know exactly how we know, but one thing we can do is we can start a conversation. Because if we believe that how the way we're doing it is the right way, then there's not much room to change. But if we believe that, yeah, it has gone okay so far, what is it what we can do? And we can talk about it. So how can we create space for others who are not a part of something we're a part of? Without having to compromise our own beliefs, because I think there's nothing wrong with saying that, but still being open-minded enough to create an environment and an atmosphere for people to feel accepted.
Mhm.
Not just because we say we accept them, but it's more that they feel that in a practical way. They feel that they are accepted. Because the moment you have to say, we want to accept you, you're you're not really speaking the truth because are we really willing to accept people, other ways of thinking about life and everything related to that? And that's where I think our weak link is in regards to not for us as a faith community to make a great impression and a difference in society. I think if people talk to us and say most people of your particular faith are very judgmental, what they actually are saying is we have a lot of judgments, but we're not open to listen to their voice and to their point of view so that we can come to a better understanding where they come from.
Okay, so I think we need some concrete examples. Um, and we're going to get into the sandbox,
Yeah, yeah.
I don't, it's not a program, but an opportunity to hear various perspectives. But can you give an example? So this is where I'm not sure I'm tracking you. There are some things that are absolute for me as a Christian.
Yes.
And although I do listen to other people's perspectives and I'm very curious at times, there might be an occasion, perhaps several occasions, where I would say, okay, I've heard that. I disagree with that. And I'm not interested in involving myself in whatever activities would lead to that kind of thinking or would allow that thinking to actually bear fruit. So in that case, is there an argument to be made for um my not my way or the highway, but there, you know, I am adhering to these set of principles and this way of being, and I'm following Christ, and everybody's welcome to go that way with me or not. And can we still have so then can we still have a community together in that disagreement or in that space where you want to go your way, I want to go my way or Christ's way? Does that question make sense to you?
Yeah, it does make sense.
Okay.
You're talking about absolutes. I think what we sometimes have confused is that we often judge the world, but we're not to be judging the world. So that
Okay.
means people who have a different belief system, but we're actually, uh, in a way, commanded to judge each other within the church.
Right?
So I don't think we do enough of that. We don't question enough within the faith communities about why we think the way we're thinking. The world is a different place, but you still can disagree with somebody in who has a different belief system and still respect that individual. Leave that person in his humanity and say, yeah, I can see your point. You have tried to explain that to me why you think this way, but I have a bit of a different opinion. But that I don't use the word I still love you because I think that's overblown. But you can say I still respect you as an individual, and we need to stay in touch with one another because I'm learning from you.
And then this is where the rubber meets the road. So then staying in touch
Yes,
is one thing. Living in community, my
yes,
understanding of community is
yeah,
quite different. So
yes,
if I'm going to use an outrageous example.
yes,
So if you really truly believe, let's see, that it's okay to, you can help me out with an example. Um, well, I'll use the vegan example because this is something that my daughter is. She
yes,
she is she does not believe that we should touch animals at all. That
yes,
we should just
yeah,
totally leave them alone.
yeah,
Don't eat any
yeah,
of their bodies or their byproducts. That's very that's what veganism is. It's
right.
I would say it's hardcore. She would say that's what veganism is. So I'm of the opinion that I can kill an animal and I can consume it. Can
Yes,
we, like, that's an example. Can we live
yes,
in community?
yes.
I mean, I don't, it's partly religion, but it's a real practical example. So I could keep in touch with her, but then
Yes.
how do I actually live in community with her? Those are two very starkly different beliefs.
Yeah, and there are probably stronger examples which you can use, and you're aware of some of them. But I still believe that it is possible to still respect the individual and to stay in relationship with that individual, knowing that there is a huge difference between you liking a hamburger and she's not going to touch it. Now, there are times that you have to be careful that you don't lose the relationship because of for the sake of the argument, of trying to win the argument, because it doesn't get you anywhere. And sometimes within families, there are even greater difficulties with one of their children. And
Oh, yeah.
I've always recommended to families that when a child chooses an alternative lifestyle, is that it might be really hard for you as a parent to accept that or to agree with that. But the most important thing is keep the relationship going. Don't cut the relationship short. I think we might have times, and I know you don't have that difficult, misunderstood this whole concept about that people might affect you in a negative way because they think differently or they have a different opinion than you have. But I don't necessarily believe that. I think all individuals, including yourself and myself, are strong enough to handle some other opinions and lifestyles which don't agree necessarily with ours. But
Completely,
yeah,
Dennis, completely.
yeah,
We certainly can handle it and we can stay in touch with. And but what I'm asking is, how do we move into a closer relationship with that individual, given that
yes,
there are some, it could be like left and right politics.
yes,
So
yeah,
do we get together, and do we just avoid those conversations? Do we get, so is it truly community if you just say, well, bless you, have a good vegan dinner, but I can't I can't be present in that, or
no,
it's
yeah,
very difficult for my daughter
yeah,
and her
yes,
husband to be around
yes,
meat. So what I
yes,
do is, when it's a special occasion, I make sure to make some vegan food. So I
yes,
think that's
yes,
what I want to get at. That's one thing, that's one level. But here
yes,
we are now in the church
yes,
where we take communion together and we have fellowship with one another. So
yes,
how do we welcome in the non-Christian. I think that's
Yes.
partly what
I
your
mean,
life's goal is to be welcoming to the non-Christian. How do we do that and then maintain those things that are very central to our belief system?
you
How?
don't have to you don't have to give those up. Those are non-negotiables. I think the Catholics actually are a bit better in that than the evangelicals, is they have non-negotiables. Then they have a whole area in where you can go a lot of different ways. And then the last part is pretty open. You can do what you want to do as long as it doesn't conflict with the non-negotiables. So if you talk about scripture, and I know you're aware of scripture, Paul says, I have become all things to all men, so by all possible means I might save some. But he also means
Sounds like Paul had an agenda there.
he did,
Yeah.
but he also said that he does not give up his alliance to Jesus Christ, and he doesn't give up any of the Ten Commandments by doing that. But you know what he did, right? When he was with other people, he ate what they ate. He was there and did the things which they did, but it didn't cause him to, let's say, sin, if
Okay.
you want to put it plainly. So I think if you feel as a community, as a church community, there's certain things you cannot do. You can still create alternative forms of community within the church. I always say you can create church within a church. You can create a community within a community.
So talk
Or
more about the sandbox because that's
yes,
exactly I
yeah,
think what you're getting at.
yeah,
We
slowly on, yeah,
Go ahead. Yeah, just go.
yeah. So basically, the sandbox came about because I went to memorial services and I found out that people often had lives which I didn't have a clue about. So then I asked myself the question, why do I don't know these things? Because I didn't have the relationship with those people to find out about that stuff. And in general, I feel that there's a lot of people who have actually a lot of good things to say and actually could be very instrumental in bringing about social change or change within the church, but don't never get a chance to talk about these things. And also, my fear is always that I live in too much of a silo so I
Right.
only hear in an echo chamber. You only hear the same stuff over and over and over again. So then I said, we have to do something where people feel welcome to come to. Hopefully, and I'm still working on this. I like to see more community people to come to these things, right? And then just get people to come and talk about normal things of life,
So just
which
so the audience won't necessarily know, Sandbox is an appointed time in a
yes,
in a very informal setting. It's not in a church building
no,
where
no,
people from the community come and
yes,
they talk about things like mental illness, or they'll talk about their experience in the army, or they might be an
yeah,
author. And then
yes.
people can come and just share who they are and what they're all about and their worldview. I just wanted the audience to know that.
No, that's pretty much it. So we're slowly on getting a little bit more into areas where there might be a bit more controversy, and that's okay because we're slowly on maturing enough to be able to listen to somebody who might not fit our particular narrative. So I thought this was a way of doing it. It's not the best way. It's not the only way. There are many other ways in where we can do things.
Right.
So, so
Right, but
like,
what's because I'm a participant in the
yes,
sandbox from time to time. I want the audience to know that these are conversations that we're having that might not happen in the church. They're
correct.
conversations that are not wrapped in scripture necessarily. We all
No,
have our own lens that we view things from.
yeah,
These are
yes,
conversations that are so relevant, and
yes,
it's a way of drawing people into an opportunity to just hear what's happening in real time in our communities, and for
yes,
the church to go, oh man,
yeah,
okay, that's how people are thinking, that's what's going on in my community. And I've benefited from them, and I've appreciated uh,
yes,
those
yeah.
nights and those topics and those conversations.
Yeah, we'll keep going until such a time that there is no interest in it anymore, and then we just adjust it to what is needed then.
Mhm.
I I mean, I also have a beer group I attend. It's very exciting, not because
What
of the
group?
beer, not because of the beer, but because of the people who come and the conversations we have. It's totally different. Normally,
How come I wasn't invited to this beer group?
because I didn't know. And the other thing, I have to put a pitch in for something. There is what we call a 3M table, and that meets on a Thursday morning. And those are mostly guys. Now, normally I'm not in favor of men or women's meetings only, but there is place and there
Yes,
is a time that you have to have those.
yeah,
But these guys go so deep that I'm actually impressed because it's an environment where they can actually ask real questions. They're not being judged by saying, for instance, I don't actually believe there is a God, or
right,
certain,
right.
certain other areas are controversial within the regular circles. But they can ask those questions, and we listen to one another. We ask clarifying questions. Again, the same concept of community. You ask questions. Try to understand the other person instead of portraying your own opinion upon that other individual. So there are actually a lot of good things happening. Between you and me, I think what we do at the Sandbox Live could be done within a church on a Sunday morning, having somebody come in and talk about something and all these things. And it's actually not a new concept because I remember we did it actually when I was living in Abbotsford for a while, but we did it in between the two services. So we had an hour, we did that kind of stuff. And it seemed to attract a large number of people because they
It,
were able to talk about stuff.
right, right. It's a wonderful concept, and I think, for me, when I go on there's not a lot of time in a week, and so
No,
I want to be able to take communion. I want to be able to
yes,
worship. I want a fellowship, but it would be a spectacular opportunity for people to come in and start asking real questions, and then we have a conversation. I don't know who would
yeah,
lead it. I don't know who would moderate it, but
no,
um,
yeah,
it might just be an absolutely timely and fitting thing. So um,
yes.
maybe that's something that you and I can talk further about before we run out of time.
Yes. How long do we
Sandbox
have
Life
yet?
every second Thursday of the
The
month.
second and fourth Thursday of each month.
And right now it's meeting at Metro Central on
Yes,
oh
in the coffee shop.
at the coffee
Yes.
shop. And tonight I think there's a discussion around the Camino.
The Camino, yeah, de Santiago.
Okay, yeah.
Yes. And we have some other exciting people lined up. I think everybody is actually exciting. Even you and I, June, we are excited too.
I'm
But,
excited. But
but
Dennis, I do want to thank you because I hear your heart. I
yeah,
see that you want to reach out to people and be relevant and to actually draw people
yeah,
in a meaningful way and meet them where they're at. And I think that's important. I
yeah,
probably I'm more agenda oriented.
yes,
In certain circumstances, I'm more agenda oriented. But there could be a time where
yeah,
we have these conversations where we're just,
yeah,
let us just demonstrate our love and our care and our
yes,
compassion to people.
yes,
Because
yeah,
you're right, people have so many good things to say
yes,
and to contribute to the life of the city, to the life of the community. Yeah,
yes.
I appreciate what you're doing, Dennis.
Yeah,
Any closing comments? Sorry that
no, no, we keep going, you and we need to connect too. Maybe we can think about some possibilities because my focused group is also the ones who have left the church, who are not going to a Sunday service anymore. Those people are still in need of community too, connection too, but it has to be done differently. They're not going to come back, most likely. But how we can we connect with them and still have a community with them on various levels and to various degrees, right? Because I mean, we're not talking about a cult-like community. I mean, where you really are crammed together. We're talking about a free-flowing community in where we can express ourselves and do what we have to do and be who we are without feeling judged in a very negative way.
all right. We'll end it there. Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you, June, and keep up the good work with Conversation Cafe.
Right. Thank you for being a guest. Have a good
Yeah.
day.